okay to, have a 9 to 5 and go work for the company. That's totally fine. But if you want to be a founder, I think you have to accept that it's going to be fairly all-consuming. And actually, like to your first point, I think there's a misconception about starting a company or being a founder is glamorous. It's not. You have to have a really high pain threshold. Everyone wins their first customer at some point, right? And you have to start.
I'm not so sure.
When you can feel there's an opportunity there that's bigger than something you've seen, you have to take the leap.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. What are the key decisions that come before you found a business? Do you start a business because you want to, or because there's an actual need, because there's a pain point in society? Today, guys, we unpack that and, what it's really like being a founder. I'm joined by the co-founder and CEO of Hello Lamppost, Tiernan Minds, as he talks to me about the realities of being a founder. Guys, if you want to start a business, if you've ever thought about starting a business, this is one you do not want to miss. He shares so many insights into what it's really like. And spoiler alert, it ain't that pretty. Now over to the show. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of What My Best Friend Does, where we talk to best friends in the hope of inspiring you to take immediate action to find the career of your dreams. Today we've got a good one, people. I'm joined by the founder and CEO of Hello Lamppost, T. How you doing, bro?
Good, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Absolute pleasure.
It's been a long time in the making.
It has, but we got there in the end, and we're going to cook something special for the listeners. We do like to start with an icebreaker. What did you want to be growing up?
Going to be a boring answer, but I think I always knew I wanted to run a business.
Oh, really? I thought you'd say boring answer, always wanted to be a footballer.
No, actually, it was probably later, when I was in teens, I thought, actually, I should have tried to be a sports person.
My business too hard. So you've always wanted to, for as long as you've known?
I think so. But when I was younger, I didn't quite realize it. Probably, I was always doing stuff like, I don't know, at school. I was doing the tuck shop thing, and then eBay took off, and I was doing stupid stuff like finding stuff that was misspelled on eBay and buying it, and then relisting it and selling it.
Really?
Yeah.
Where do you think the passion to be like a wheeler dealer, I don't even know if that's the right word, where did the passion for all the entrepreneurial mindset come from, do you think?
Undoubtedly my dad, my father, he ran a business for 30 odd years, so I think he always says that he was only employed once when he was 16 or 17 or something, and then he built a business up from the ground up. So, growing up, that was that was my summer jobs, right? Just being like a slave labor for his company, right? So yeah, I've always been around it, always been exposed to it.
Like what you've seen.
Yeah, and it was never discouraged, right? So even when I've done ventures that have failed, it was kind of never discouraged, because how could you when you've got someone in the household that is running a business as well, right? So yeah, it's always been around, and I was always exposed to it. So I think just by osmosis, I just started doing stuff.
Yeah, and with that, what was the earliest you'd started ventures? Was it while you were at school? Was it post university? What was the earliest business you set up? Proper business, not tuck shop.
Proper business was during uni. Yeah, when I was at university. So yeah, I was doing this kind of eBay buying and selling, and then I also started a iPhone, iPad
fixing
repair
it
business.
Oh, bloody hell. Okay.
Yeah. So I was doing that for a while. The eBay stuff got pretty far. I even went as far as kind of I bought some software which was called like a sniping software.
Yeah. A bit like what is it, FIFA Ultimate Team?
Right.
Where you snipe cards on the cheap.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wait, so how does this actually work? eBay sniping? I'm intrigued.
I'm not sure if it even exists anymore, but it would search for things like spelling mistakes.
Why does that impact the cost?
Well, because people will be searching spelling correctly, and then the listing that's spelled incorrectly wouldn't come up.
Okay.
So no one's finding that listing of that item. So if you will go and find it, and either it's like a buy it now or it's an auction, and you pay for it, and it's, you know, there's no kind of like bidding war that's been created, so you get it cheap, and then you just relist it spelled correctly, and you make money on it.
Okay, that's it. That's it.
But I think my first proper business, was with a friend at uni, and it was a peer-to-peer marketplace for students. So website,
like Facebook Marketplace.
Simple. Yeah, but peer-to-peer. So you could cut out delivery costs if you were listed at the same uni, and you could go leave it on campus, a deposit box. Started with books and then kind of scaled out from there.
Oh mate, that sounds sick. And like in terms of actual like university itself, knowing that you've always kind of wanted to start your own thing, like what did you go to university for? Was it to learn to become a businessman? Was it to get the university experience? Like, yeah, why did you go, and do you think that the uni degree was worth the price of admission? I love asking this question.
It's a good question. I think bottom line is, at school, definitely, I can't say that I knew at the time I don't want nothing to do apart from start a business. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know that yet, even though I'd had all these experiences. And I think probably choosing the wrong course for me made me realise that that's the path that I wanted to take. And with all honesty, like why did I go to university? It wasn't because, I want to go and start a business, so I'll go and do a course to do with that, because I didn't. It was, you know, dictated to me almost that was the right thing to do.
Okay.
Right. That was the right path. It was the only way that you could progress in life.
So it's not just African households where it's dictated to you that you need to go to university.
Well, actually, you know, for me, it wasn't even the household. Actually, it was like school.
Okay.
It was, you know, there was unless you go to university,
you won't amount to anything.
You won't amount to anything, really. It was
absolutely ridiculous.
So that's if I'm truthful, that's probably the main reason why I ended up at university. And I've always said that in education in the UK, you have to make choices at too young a age. You know, choosing GCSEs, choosing A levels, particularly choosing a university course or a path at whatever you are, like 16, 17, is way too young.
Yeah.
I think that the US system works a lot better, where you can go to college, but you choose a major at a later stage.
Yeah.
So then you've experienced more things. You've perhaps got some industry experience. Works much better.
One of the few things they do right.
Right. Yeah. But
it's a shame how much it costs.
True. Yeah, true. Unless you're an insane sportsman, you get a scholarship.
Yeah. But no, like, thanks for the early insight. I think like where I want to go with it next, like obviously you mentioned the fact that you had these businesses from early. The first question is, you know, where is it that you identify the businesses that you want to start? Like, why was it iPhone fixing? Why was it eBay? Like, how does one even stumble upon these opportunities to know that there's a business venture? And
I think the problem, probably the common thread is two parts. It's either opportunity or it's a pain point. There's kind of an age-old saying that like you shouldn't start a business starting with a solution or a product. You should start a business with a problem or an opportunity. So if you take like the iPhone fixing business, that's an opportunity, right? People have at the time, Apple weren't allowing people to repair and service products. There was a market there.
So you were iSmash before iSmash?
Yeah.
K to B.
The original iSmash. Yeah. But yeah, you like anything, you spot an opportunity, you learn, and then you start it. Or it's a pain point. You know, if you look at any great business, it's predominantly because there's a pain point that exists. You know, the saying of necessity is the mother of all invention. That's basically business.
I love that. And to somebody who's listening to this, potentially wanting to like found a business, like how is it you know that it's actual pain? Because there are some things like, oh, you know, my mum and dad said they need that, and there isn't actually a market. Is there like a tipping point where, like you say, it actually is a necessity and can be considered a pain in your experience?
Go and find out.
Okay.
Go and find out.
Yeah.
There's no shortcut to it. You know, there's absolutely no shortcut to it. Go and speak to people, go and find out, use your own experiences. You know, you hear so many businesses that are born out of people's own experiences, people's own frustrations, and then that ends up being a shared frustration or pain point with, you know, hundreds, thousands, millions of people. So yeah, there's no easy way. Just go and find out, go and speak to people. I think many people will jump in at the deep end and assume that it's a pain point for many people and end up burning a lot of cash sometimes, and it ends up not being. So you can always do a lot with very little.
Oh, I love that. And then, so you've been to university, you've got your degree in in the subject you're not too fond of. Is it at that point that you're like, all right, business time, I'm going to go start a business? Or do you actually go into the working world and you realize that maybe the working world isn't for you?
A bit of both, actually. If I think about my path, so I pretty early on in first year of uni realized that this course and this career wasn't for me. But what I didn't want to do is you know, reset, start again in another course. So I basically just took the decision that I'll choose as many modules and paths as I could that will put me in good stead for business, for starting a business. And then I set out on a path that, like, why you do have a lot of free time at uni, so why not use that opportunity to try and start something? So just started actively thinking about, you know, actually what world am I in, what pain points exist. I knew that you know, if you take Facebook as an example, that's how they started, on one university, and then they kind of small coin, big coined it to other universities. So they
kind of stole the idea, but that's here not there, Mark. Let me stay on Instagram.
That's so just started thinking.
Yeah.
Started thinking, and then the idea kind of sparked when I was chatting to a couple of friends, and then you slowly gather the momentum. But yeah, for me it was a combination, and then not even then did I sort of finish uni and say, right, I'm all in, let's do this business. I still was kind of on the rail tracks of, oh right, now the right thing to do is going on a grad scheme. That's the right thing to do. I'll go and do that. So yeah, did that, and but still had in the back of my mind, I'll go and do this grad scheme, but I still have this kind of like this itch that, you know, I want to start a business, but wasn't entirely sure that it was going to be that one that I started at uni. So when I got a grad scheme, and then still then decided, right, I'm going to try and explore as much as possible in this business to give me the kind of breadth of knowledge and experience and just be a sponge.
What business was that?
That I joined on the grad scheme?
That you were thinking about starting?
Well, I didn't know. So I carried on that business that I'd started at university.
Oh, okay. The business you started at university.
So we ended up getting some grant funding for that, which helped fund a bunch of things.
Oh, the peer-to-peer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a peer-to-peer marketplace for students, basically. So we carried on going with that, and I was doing a grad scheme at the time, so I had a job, and I was also doing the website on the side. And then slowly got it to a point where I kind of felt comfortable to take the leap and give it a go. And it failed miserably. Great.
I was about to say, I'm so happy that you said it failed miserably. But yeah, like my question off the back of that is, when you look back, are there some stuff that you wish you knew earlier in time that you could have implemented that might have led to that business potentially being more successful than it was? What were like the key learnings you take from that business failing?
I mean, way more positives than any negatives in terms of learnings. I mean, what would I like to have known back then? There were a lot of parallel companies that were operating in the same spheres of universities and students, and I mean, it would have been great to have them as a network right from day one, because once I got to know a few of those founders, then they'd kind of give you so much knowledge, right? And by that point, I was kind of a year or two down the line. But the key thing, and the reason why it failed is if you're going to be reliant on your user base being students, that is a revolving audience every single year.
Yeah.
So you need to have a huge marketing budget.
Oh, because the churn is just crazy. Yeah. I mean, the churn is guaranteed as well. It's like 100%. Well, it's like 33% churn, however you want to look at it. Yeah.
So, you're only going to hold on to people a maximum of whatever, like 5-7 years in some courses. So, that would have been the key piece of information that would have been handy right at the start. So you could either go down the path of raising funding to fund that marketing, or what we avoided from day one was kind of the endorsement of the educational institutions, just because it's difficult.
And then, like, I think it's always like more interesting to hear about like the businesses that fail, maybe sometimes, than the businesses that succeed. But for that first business, like, what is the key moment where you put the nail in the coffin? Because there are some people who are like wedded to the idea, and you romanticize it, and you think this is gonna succeed no matter what. To any potential founders who may be walking down the wrong path, like, what are the key signals that allow you to go, okay, this isn't working, we need to shut this off and move on to the next one?
I mean, whether it's going well or going badly, this is kind of a bit of a mantra, but you have to, numbers don't lie. Mm-hmm. You have to follow the data. It's so easy. And I did this for a while. I was actually with that first business, I was working on it alone for a lot of the time. And it can be a bit of an echo chamber, right? And you, like you said, you can romanticize about that it could be going well. And in reality, if you look at the numbers and you look at the data, they don't lie. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that is the key thing, whether you're on a rocket ship of a company or whether it's not going very well, like you have to follow the data. Yeah. And we, our company, Hello Lamppost today, that's, what we do. You have to follow what's working well and put your eggs in those baskets. So, and if I'm honest, that peer-to-peer marketplace, like, probably romanticized about it for a bit too long. Thinking that, it'll work if we do X, Y, and Z, or, taking the smallest little wins as being indicators that the business is going well. Yeah. Whereas in reality, in the grand scheme, you have to kind of recognize when it's not going well, and either can it and do something else, or pivot the business in some way. Yeah.
Okay. So you decide obviously to can it. You've touched upon Hello Lamppost there, and how you look at the data. Was there anything in between that business and Hello Lamppost?
Yeah, so I got asked to join a venue hiring marketplace website to essentially launch like a new product. So they were already kind of a startup, scale up, probably about 20 people I think when I joined, and yeah, like, starting to think about the first business that I started, and thinking, well, A, the cash is running out, and B, the indicators that things weren't going well were starting to set in a little bit. Yeah. So it was good timing. I was starting to look for like different opportunities, and then this company came along and asked me to join them, and I started a new team, and it was a new product and revenue stream for them. So it was a nice kind of blank page for me, I suppose, to go and start that. And again, in all honesty, it was my first. I took the leap from corporate world into being alone, and then I went into somewhere in between. So it was my first kind of, I guess, foray into an established startup. So huge, loads of learning. That company I helped, in part them fundraise as well whilst I was there, and great journey. And then during that time is when I met my now co-founders. Wow. Just by chance, really. And then became friends with them, and yeah.
Okay. Well, we're not gonna skip over that, even though I just tried to. So, I think it's so fascinating, the fact that you had the corporate job, you went solo, as you said, you've gone back to the working world, and then you've taken the leap again. My question there is, you're at this company that starts to raise money. You've obviously tried one thing, you failed. At what point? What are the signals? Obviously, you said you've met your co-founders. What are what's the feeling? Like, was there a need that you'd kind of identified? Yeah, maybe now tell us about the origins of Hello Lamppost and how it came to be.
Yeah, I think bottom line, like when you know when you can feel there's an opportunity there that's bigger than something you've seen, you have to take the leap.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. I love it. Sorry, yeah.
No, it's fine. I think so. The full origin story really is, so my two co-founders, Ben and Sam, were running kind of a design consultancy at the time. They're super experienced in kind of user experience and interactive technology. And the origin story really was, there's an award called the Playable City Award that's run in Bristol, and it's designed to encourage basic technology in the public realm, which is more people-centered. Mm-hmm. And it was really born out of kind of a couple of observations and frustrations, really. Like, one is that our physical worlds are still pretty analog. Even down to like you sit on a bench and you stand under a bus shelter and you look at a bronze plaque on a statue, right? It's all super like antiquated. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is like, which was a bit of a realization and a frustration, was we use airports and high streets and office spaces and there are still like super high barriers to entry to get information and to get support. Mm-hmm. And it's logical. You can't have staff members everywhere and anywhere 24/7 at these places. So it's kind of this like idea, observation, opportunity, that what if you could have an interactive layer to everywhere, and actually originally, what if objects could talk to you? So that was the original concept that, we submitted to Playable Cities and it ended up winning and it funded kind of was just meant to be a one-off instance of Hello Lamppost in Bristol. This is pre me. And that went really well. It kind of got a lot of press coverage and about that time, or soon after, I started to become friends with Ben and Sam, and then there was a lot of inquiries, to do Hello Lamppost in around the world. So mm-hmm. This kind of drop in Hello Lamppost was done in Singapore and Austin and Kazakhstan and all these kind of like places around the world, and the Olympic Park in London actually. And that's kind of when I got chatting to them. And at the time, they were launching a spin-off app, completely separate, which was spun out of their design consultancy. And the more I kind of got to talking to them, the more they were saying like, well, we don't know what to do with this Hello Lamppost thing. Like, people keep inquiring about it. And
that's a good signal.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. If there's inbound interest, that's kind of one like really key signal. And then the more I chatted to them about it and got to know the concept, that's when the kind of spark started to go off that actually this is literally applicable to any public space in probably any corner of the world, as long as there's some sort of signal. And it's that kind of bridge between the kind of property owner or manager, whether it's like a high street and it's a council, whether it's an office building, and the end users. It's that kind of digital assistant that's everywhere, but it's super localized. So it's for that office space, it's for the gate at the airport, it's for that statue on the high street. So that's the juices started flowing at that point.
I love it. And with the way it works now, and apologies if I'm getting this wrong, would it be like QR codes dotted about a building? You scan the QR code and then you get that digital assistance with any query that you might have.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So the base premise is we, with our partners, put signs in place. So it might be a sticker on a table. It might be a banner that's on the wall at an airport gate or whatever, and it says, I'm your digital assistant here, and you scan the QR code. There's no app or an account or anything. It just opens up either a mobile browser or SMS message or a WhatsApp message, and then it kind of triggers that conversation. It introduces itself. It's kind of a friendly tone, and then you can ask questions but it'll also ask you questions, and that's how we're able to kind of gather feedback and opinions and stuff for our partners.
I love it. Is it a chatbot or is it a live person who's providing the feedback? Am I allowed to ask that? I don't know.
You're allowed to ask it. It's me on the other end.
Yeah.
No, it's like fully automated.
Okay, it's fully automated.
So yeah, the kind of analogy that I try and describe it is, if you imagine the Hello Lampo system is kind of like a puppeteer. So there is a knowledge base, if you like, of information which is pre-approved by our customer, by our partner, and then our system handles how to react, what to say, when to use AI, which is kind of at the core of our platform, so that it's always keeping it relevant, personalized for the user, but also in like a friendly tone.
I love it. Just coming back to the fact that you've obviously like joined this business as a co-founder. It's very early in its infancy. The demand is there, but you mentioned the fact that they're trying to spin off another app. When you decide, okay, I'm going to go into this company and try and add value, like what helps to facilitate that decision? And what I mean by that is like, is it, oh my God, I've got 6 months worth of savings, so like I can take a gamble. Like you mentioned the fact that they won the award. Was there money left over? What was kind of the starter pack that allowed you to be like, I believe in this and we've got some runway that's going to allow us to sink or swim?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you just have to be practical about these things. It's again, it's so easy just to get carried away with like the fantasy of starting a business.
Exactly.
It's going to take off straight away. But it's a practical thing, right? There weren't a great deal of funds available in the company, so we started sensibly. I took a leap of faith a little bit and took a fair bit of risk, but so did they, right? So the funds that were left paid me a moderate salary, and we said, look, let's go for 6 months. I'll quit my job and let's go for 6 months and see if we can. Essentially, we laid out some hypotheses of do these pain points exist and could we land a few more customers. So I went hell for leather on trying to win some more customers and did, and we got traction from there. And Hello Lampos wasn't a company of its own by then. We hadn't incorporated.
Wow.
So we said, the next milestone would be win some customers, and then that will validate some of the hypotheses, and then we'll start a company.
And then I love that. Like, to anybody who's listening to this and they're in the same boat, when you say win customers, like, I want to understand, how is it like you go about identifying and winning customers? Is it a case of, you mentioned the fact that we know that we're going to be useful in airports and in shared spaces? Like, do you go on LinkedIn? Are you looking for the CEO? Like, where is it that you got the database to kind of cold call, cold email and get that validation from that first set of customers?
Yeah, I mean, it's graphs.
Okay, that's it. It's straight up and down.
There's no secret to it. I mean, you have to start, or in my opinion, you have to start with a hypothesis. You have to start with like you said, we think that X type of person or organization has Y pain point, and we think our solution solves it because, right? So that's what you start with, and we had a bunch of those kind of customer profiles with suggested kind of solution hypotheses, and we started there. And
is it interviews first before you actually sell a solution, or is it straight, we have this, would you be interested?
I think you try and find some friendly faces, right? You try and bounce it off as much as possible, but at the same time, in the back of your mind, regardless of the kind of structure that we set out, you're always going to have like a timeline in mind. It's not going to be, we have no funds and let's try to win one customer in 10 years.
Yeah, of course.
So you have to start with a hypothesis and friendly faces as much as possible, of course. And then, there's no way around, like, the first few pitches are going to be painful, right? Yeah. But you only learn by doing. Like, get out there, graft, learn, iterate. And then if things start working, then you focus down on that, you narrow down on that, and you say, right, why did that work? Is it the type of customer? Is it the way we pitched it? If so, let's do that again. with someone else.
So you're always analysing. And
Yeah.
the reason I'm unpacking this is because I even think back to myself, like, I think for me, if I was to start a business, even like trying to prepare a presentation that's compelling, I just don't think I got the facilities. So like you said, is it just a case of, because sometimes it might be death by PowerPoint, you want to pack in so much information, like how do you know what you're presenting is good and where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I've always said like selling is an art and a science.
Yeah.
The art is, I think, is in the kind of emotional intelligence, being able to put yourself in their shoes, what their pain points are, but also read the room, and be flexible in the pitch. Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate in the sense of it was a bit easier to fake it till you make it, because Ben and Sam, my two co-founders, were from design backgrounds, right? So it was very easy for us to create a sexy looking pitch, and even if it was just a one slide thing, right, we could spin that round in a day. So I was pretty fortunate from that respect. But yeah, I mean, look, everyone wins their first customer at some point, right? And you have to start there.
I'm not so sure.
True.
No, I'm joking.
But I mean, I guess what I mean is you've got to start with one, and then you build from there.
Yeah.
Because you can guarantee, as soon as you get that first logo, you're going to be reusing that logo in the pitch deck.
100%.
To win the second and third.
So you mentioned the fact that you had the 6-month POC. We get to the end of the 6 months. Can you like spell out the lay of the land? Have you secured any clients at this point? You mentioned the fact that you get one client, you use multiple. Where are we at this moment in time?
We definitely won clients. I can't remember
how many. Enough to keep the lights on. Enough to validate the idea. Yeah. Because spoiler alert, 7 years later, they're still here.
Yeah, still surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely enough to keep the lights on. Probably just. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't like we could go and hire 5 people. We still we basically, the lay of the land was incorporate as a company, and then start organically growing. So we actually by design decided we won't go out and fundraise from day one. Let's try and grow organically and bootstrap, as the term goes, from day one. And we didn't really have a timeline on that. We said, look, let's try and grow organically and in reality try and build some funds up to hopefully then hire 1 or 2 people and try and grow from there. And we ended up doing that. I think we ended up doing that up to about 4 or 5 people. Predominantly at the time focused on like local government, public sector. So the airports and office spaces and stuff was we were nowhere near that. That wasn't even in the realms of thinking. So
when you're making your first hire, sorry to jump in there, like how do you as a founder decide what the most important roles are? Like who were those first hires outside of the 3 of you?
I mean, ultimately at the early stages, you're hiring generalists. You're nowhere near at the stage of being able to hire specialists. You need more jack of all trades that are happy to essentially roll up their sleeves and get involved in whatever needs to get involved in.
And how do you, as a founder, go about finding those people?
I can't remember what the first role we put out for. I think it might have been something like business development.
Okay.
That's kind of point number 1, get more interest through the door. I think that's probably what we did. And
get them in as business development and then
see what they can handle.
Exactly, because I was person number 20 at my previous company, and I think people romanticize, if you work at a startup, it's great, you can IPO this, you can IPO that, but the actual real benefit of working at a startup is the exposure you get to so many different roles. So I started in business development, funnily enough, but then I went into account management. And as part of the account management team, we were offering analytical services. So I was doing insight reports. So I got consultant experience, and then you do the this and you do the that.
Yeah, so you're probably the dream. Roll up the sleeves and get involved in everything.
And you don't realize it at the time that you're rolling up your sleeves, but when it comes to interviewing, progressing through your career, you actually have this bank of stories of exposure and tangible examples of what you've done because you've been exposed because there's no other option
Yeah.
and there's so few people there. So I think people sometimes they're wedded to the wrong idea
100%.
of working for a startup as to
100%.
like what they should actually be looking out for.
And that's one question we to this day we still ask candidates is like, you know, why do you want to work at a startup? Because I totally agree. Like too many times, it is because they've seen the film The Social Network. Right?
Yeah.
They think that's the next big thing. Whereas in reality, you know, there are many times when things will be on a knife edge, and you have to get involved in everything and anything.
Yep.
And some people enjoy that and some people don't, and that's totally fine. And I've always said interviews should be as much as possible a two-way thing.
100%. 100%.
Because it's not good for anyone if you end up 6 months down the line and someone's not enjoying having to get involved in everything and anything. You know, they want to stick to their job, which is totally fine. But yeah, that's one thing that we ask in interviews, and the other thing is we try and make interviews as informal as possible, because everyone gets a learning on the true situation. You know, you get to learn the true person, they get to learn the truth about what it's like to work at the company as much as possible. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a fancy around it.
And one thing I'm going to add there to your point, like you asked, why do you want to work here? So for me personally, any company that I've interviewed for, like I've had to believe in the mission. And when you actually believe in the mission and the software, that's what allows you to work in those tough times, because you genuinely believe in the problem that you're solving. And I think if you can communicate that to your potential employer, it's going to serve you greatly in the interview. I think it's the interviews you go for where, I want a bit more money, or I want a bit of prestige, and you don't know what the mission is and why you're actually going for it. I think that's where you fluff your lines. But if you genuinely only go for jobs that you like or love, that's when you're gonna just be able to be yourself and smash.
I mean, and it's also two-way, right? Like life's too short. Like go after, be picky if you can be, obviously, you know, work for things and do things that you love doing. And on the flip side, I mean, the other thing that I always say, which is I guess kind of cringe, but we always look for kindness and curiosity in candidates, and that's part of our culture. And the curious part is that, you know, are you curious about where this company can go? Are you curious where their mission can go and how much they can achieve? That kind of spark, like you said, both in the good times and bad times, will, you know, everyone's going to go the extra mile. Yeah. And that's super, super important for us.
Yeah, I love it. Just on that, and like you've probably hired, you know, numerous people. We've touched upon some of the things there, but my first question is, what are like the big red flags when you're hiring people, where you're interviewing them and you're like, I just know this person's not a good company fit for us?
That's a tough question. I mean, yeah, like I said, the two things that we always look for is kindness and curiosity. And you know, if they don't show a spark of passion about what we're doing, then, you know, are they really going to care about what we're doing? Kindness, I mean, it's pretty obvious. You know, we don't want dicks in the company.
That's fine. It's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
You know, I pride myself that we've got a really good company culture in the team. You know, everyone gets on. Everyone is like willing to help each other out, even if, you know, everyone's busy. Everyone's willing to help each other out. I guess one that we always talk about is the one that you just mentioned, is, you know, wanting to work in a startup and thinking that, you know, it's going to be all kind of roses.
Is there a question, like, is that your filter question, where if they answer it like, you're like, okay, maybe they're not off it, or do you have other questions that help you to filter out?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be the main one, but, you know, you can kind of dig into it, right? It's like, why do you want to work in a small team, or, you know, what do you think is involved in working in a startup? You can kind of dig a bit further, and the ones who, you know, come up with, you know, I love getting involved in multiple things. I love being busy. I love, you know, seeing, one that we hear a lot, which is great, is you know, seeing the results of my work, is, you know, moving the cogs in that machine. Yeah, and that was me, right? Being in a corporate at the start of my career, and just being this tiny little cog in this huge machine, and any idea that you had would take a year to 2 years to get through it. I think you can see the itch in people when that's not for them.
Yeah.
And when they come to you and say, I want to make a difference and be able to show that my work is making a difference or turning those cogs, like that's when you realize, okay, like this person gets what it's like to work in a small early stage company.
I love it. You've obviously been doing it for a long time, like I said. I like to really, give the realities of of what it's like to be a founder. In the 7 years that you've been there, 6-7 years, sorry, like what have been some of like the most challenging aspects of running the company, and how have you overcome them?
I mean, frankly, the most challenging aspects are nearly dying a few times. As an early stage company, the number one thing is running out of money.
Yeah.
So that's always on your mind at the earlier stages, but yeah, that's probably the number one challenges. It's a constant factor, and then you've got this kind of you've got this push and pull where one side of you has to be pushing the company forward and getting it to grow and thinking about the next stages, the next 5 years, but also one side of your brain also has to be thinking like today,
yeah.
and tomorrow. So your biggest challenge is really we've been very, very fortunate that the team and the people that we've hired have been, and to this day, are fantastic, and that's the best part. A company is nothing without people, right? So that's been the best part. But yeah, the challenging part is, especially in the early days when we were bootstrapped, is this kind of push and pull of wanting to spend to grow, but also not wanting to spend too quickly or make the wrong decision that it ends up being a detrimental effect and you run out of cash quicker.
Yeah, I hear that. And, just on that, like, I think when you hear founder or like, business owner, you think, are you going to raise money? Are you going to do this IPO, shares, stock option? Like, as a founder yourself, what are the considerations for raising? And I don't know if you have taken money, and if you have, like, why? What are the considerations that a founder needs to be cognizant of before looking to raise money? Because I think there's a misconception around it, isn't there? Yeah.
And actually, like, to your first point, I think there's a misconception about being starting a company or being a founder is glamorous. It's not.
Yeah. Into that one. Yeah, it's not.
You have to have a really high pain threshold.
Yeah.
Especially at the earlier stages, unless, I don't know, you're fortunate enough to be able to fund it, significantly from day one. Actually, not his biggest fan, but Elon Musk famously said that being a founder is like chewing on glass and staring into an abyss. Right? So you have to have a high pain threshold. But in terms of fundraising, I think the whole social network film and the glam around Silicon Valley has created this often misnomer that raising money is a metric of success in business, and actually there's probably more businesses that haven't raised capital that are successful than have. So I think it's the bottom line is it's not, raising venture capital is not for every type of company, and in venture capital's strategy and their model of making money, they go after certain types of companies. We have raised money and might do again in the future. That's kind of undecided, but that's because we had the ambition that this company can be applied, this platform can be applied pretty much in every public space in almost every corner of the world, and we were hungry to scale that quicker. and that was a decision. You have two paths. Do you carry on bootstrapping and growing organically, and it'll take a lot longer, or do you want to grow this quicker and take a bit more of a risk? And that's the path that we took. But yeah, like I said, it's not for every business and it's not for every person. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people that start an early stage company these days, that's kind of the first thing they think of, because it's almost the industry pushes that on you as that's a metric of success. You have to raise money, and you don't. And actually, the fundraising market landscape has changed significantly in the last 5 years.
It's all in the power of the people who are giving the money at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. And not only that, but 5 years ago it was
take it. Yeah. They were giving it out quicker than they could make it.
And it didn't matter about profitability. It didn't matter about revenues. It was all about like how much you're growing month on month. Whereas now that's kind of flipped around completely, and all investors want a view on when you're going to hit profitability or what's your path to it. So yeah, these things change, and bottom line is it's not for everyone. I think ignore the noise and look at the realities of why you want to raise money or not.
Okay, so that's the key takeaway, because I heard you say something there like the first thing that comes to people's mind is, just want to raise for no reason. What should be the first thing that comes to their mind? It's the why. Yeah,
it's the why. Yeah, it's absolutely and I think they call it the 5 whys. Is ask yourself, why do you want to raise money? Because we want to hire more people. Why? Because we want to grow quicker. Why? Because we want to be a bigger company. And then you kind of start to unpick it, right?
Yeah.
And for us, we had a very clear, we want to be at X revenue, or we want to be operating in X number of countries in so many years. And thinking back from that, mathematically, you have to have a certain amount of money to achieve certain estimated number of sales, etc. So don't just think of we want to raise money. Actually, ask yourself why and work back from there. And I think it's just being okay that if the end answer is actually raising money might not be right for us, that's fine. I think too many people think of that as a negative thing.
I love it. Mentorship, like you mentioned the fact that your dad's always been a businessman. I had a guest on the podcast a couple of weeks back, and his piece of advice for anybody starting a business was you need mentors and you need to speak to people who have been there, done that. And I think what Jean-Vier said, shout out Jean-Vier, great episode out now, make sure you listen. What he said at the time is, even if you've got people who have been there and failed, the fact that they failed means that they can steer you away from the wrong path. And I felt that was so poignant. I suppose, why am I saying this long-winded story? Do you have mentors and people that are guiding you through your journey? And if so, how early did you bring them on board as advisors?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is that not all of them have been advisors. Sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's family members, and actually sometimes I haven't even realized that person has been a mentor.
Yeah,
you just end up venting to them, or you bounce ideas off them, and I think what I've learned is different types of mentors for different things is quite healthy.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right, and he's absolutely right that you can get an equal amount of knowledge from what not to do as what to do.
Yeah,
which I could have done within my first venture, actually. So I've always struggled with that mentor thing, actually, particularly earlier in my career. It came out as a term early in my career as, you must have a mentor. So I actively went out and kind of spoke to random people, and I said, would you like to be my mentor? And you end up having coffee, so going for lunch. And I don't know if it's just me, but a lot of the time it ended up just being forced. We're meeting up because there's this half an hour in the calendar. In reality, I think it should happen a bit more organically, at least it has for me. And, mentors or people giving advice for me have changed and evolved over the years, particularly as we've gone through different stages of the company. I'd say my group of kind of business mentors at the moment are ones who have kind of been through it 5-6 stages ahead of where we are now, so that you can kind of bounce off them, and they'll say, oh yeah, I remember when we were at that stage and we did X, Y, and Z.
You mentioned it happening organically. Sorry to jump in there.
Right.
Like, how is it happens organically? Like, you meet them at a networking event, you just get talking, and then you're like, oh my God, this is somebody who maybe they offer up like, oh, if you ever need anything, like, let me know, rather than I'm going to go on LinkedIn and search CEO.
Yeah, because I'm sure they never get any messages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've always been a fan of you never know who you're going to meet. And actually my girlfriend, fiance, always says it. Why do you always go and chat to people? Why are you constantly chatting to people? And I mean, I quite enjoy it, and B, you just never know who you're going to meet.
100%.
And networking events, like, I think I've lost count the number of times where I thought like, oh, is this going to be any good? And then you end up with like one person that's like, wow, that's all. Really
that's all you need as well.
Yeah, so for me, it's always happened that way. Either it's a colleague's introduced you to someone, or a customer's introduced you to someone, or an investor's introduced you to someone. I think the key is being open, and I guess, for want of a better term, being vulnerable. Like, I think it's naive to think that at any stage, even if whatever IPO stage, that you can't still learn. And the first step to that is being okay that you might be doing something wrong, or you can be doing something better. Because inevitably, that's how it's always happened to me. Is just saying, like, I'm really struggling with this challenge, or struggling with this problem, or I don't know how to work this out, and someone will end up going, oh, well, I know such and such who went through the exact same thing. You should have a chat.
Yeah.
And that's how for me, that's how it's ended up. Then you go back to that person, and then you go back to that person.
And then they recommend someone for a different challenge you have.
Yeah.
I love that. So another founder who I had on this podcast, shout out Essen. Oh, come on. Wait, this is episode 50, by the way. We've not even bigged it up, but come on. He mentioned the fact that, like, he reads books, and he will read like a specific part of a book to help him solve like a specific problem. Do you like just use, I suppose, like specific mentors to solve problems, or are you somebody that like does research, reads literature, and tries to get guidance from like multiple different resources?
I guess so. I guess it depends on the problem. I don't, maybe it's my personality, but I've always found having an informed conversation is the right way to go. So yeah, research on that problem, gather as much kind of data and information as I can. But then most of the problems or challenges that I face get solved in a room with someone, usually Ben or Sam, me venting about a problem, and then we kind of work it out together. For me, that's how it's been productive. I can't say that I will go and find a book and read the whole book to solve a challenge. Okay. It's not because I don't read, but
no, just different people work in different ways.
The way my brain works is
100%.
Hashing it out, on a big whiteboard and working out a challenge, and then working out what the first step to solving that challenge is. Or you go and speak to someone and they already know the answer. Yeah. That's how I've always worked.
And on that, like, just piggybacking off that, like, would you say you've got like a framework for solving challenges? Because I think being a founder, there are just all these unexpected hurdles that you come across. When you come across a hurdle, like you said, is it whiteboard, ask people, research? Like, do you have like a framework that you typically go by, or does it vary depending on the situation?
It probably varies, but the approach is probably the same. Is well, don't shy away from it, don't bury your head in the sand. Actually, like, rip it open, even if it's a small problem, go and unpack it. And then I think I've always said, like, progress is better than perfection. So even if you improve it by 2%, learn from that and then iterate, and then you will eventually solve that challenge. And I always say to the team, we're going to have challenges at whatever stage we are, but I always say this to the team, like, the problems and the challenges that we're trying to solve now, we were wishing for 6 months ago. Right?
Yeah.
So those challenges that we had back then, they're in our rearview mirror. But yeah, in terms of approach, I think it's just, don't shy away from it, like, take it head on. and don't try and solve it with perfection. Just try and take the first step into solving it. Sometimes that's, whiteboard. Sometimes it's speaking to someone or finding someone to speak to. I guess it just depends on the challenge.
I love it. We've kind of touched upon it before, but the role of founder, I feel like, like people like romanticize, we've spoken about it. For you, you've probably worked with a few founders. Like, what do you feel are critical skills that you need to succeed as a founder, in your opinion?
A high pain threshold.
Being able to chew glass, staring into the abyss.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we joke about it, but I think being real with the reality of it from day one. I think you're absolutely right, and I see it all the time. The romance of being a founder or starting a company, with very little kind of consideration for what the reality is. In terms of I guess attributes, one that I always come back to is grit. Which is to do with that kind of high pain threshold, but grit in terms of not shying away from a challenge, always being hungry for that kind of end goal, if you like, or that next goal, that next milestone, but also grit in terms of not getting flustered. I think at whatever stage you're at with a business, you're always going to be faced with challenge. You're always going to be jumping on the most urgent fire, right? And I think the more you can embrace that and have a kind of a level head, then the more it's going to put you in good stead. And I think, I can't remember who said it, but it was quite a good quote, which was, some of the best founders are never too high and never too low.
Yeah.
So in the downs and in the ups, they've always got a fairly even keel. So yeah, I'd say those things, and the other huge one I think is like emotional intelligence, which is really hard to define. But at the end of the day, as the founder, you're always going to be dealing with people, whether it's your team, whether it's your co-founders, whether it's customers, whoever it is. And I think having emotional intelligence to be able to understand that other person's perspective, that other person's position, and either adapt your approach or be able to challenge or feedback in the right way, whilst also understanding their goals, the company's goals, your goals, right? I think it's a bit of a maze, but I think if you can have more emotional intelligence and more empathy, then you're going to be able to navigate all of those things a lot easier.
Yeah, I love it. As a founder, like, obviously you're probably very productive, always doing lots. Like, I haven't asked this in a while, but do you have any productivity hacks? You're allowed to say no as well.
I mean, first of all, I'd contradict you and say I'm not sure I'm the most efficient or productive person. Actually, I'm really guilty of just kind of like jumping on the thing that's shouting the loudest.
Yeah.
Productivity hacks, I don't know. I mean, I use for me, I have to kind of earmark time for stuff.
Yeah.
So literally having stuff blocked in calendars. And I guess the other thing for me is sometimes, I mean, it's like an age-old saying, but like a problem shared is a problem halved. I can quite easily kind of go around in circles trying to solve something myself, when actually, like, speaking to someone for 5 minutes will probably solve it.
Different perspective. It's crazy what a different perspective can do.
Yeah.
I mean, even me in my day-to-day, sometimes I'll be like thinking, oh my God, I just don't know how to word an email to a client because I'm like fuming or whatever, and just sharing it with someone. Oh, why don't you just say this?
Yeah.
Like, I'll just tweet that. A problem halved is a problem shared.
Other way around.
No, a problem shared is a problem halved. I love it. Just as we round out this section, like, is there like a big misconception with being a founder? Like, we've spoken about like the romance with it, but what would you say is like the biggest misconception of being a founder?
I mean, it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
That it's not, I think probably the biggest misconception is that, being a founder is just like doing a 9-to-5 job. and it depends what your motivations are, right? Whether you're going to take that plunge or not. I think, having it's okay to, have a 9 to 5 and go work for the company. That's totally fine. But if you want to be a founder, I think you have to accept that it's going to be fairly all consuming. Even if that means sometimes it encroaches on personal life, unfortunately.
I've heard that. I've heard that from every founder. Like, you're 24/7, you never switch off.
Yeah, and I think there is a balance, right? I think this whole again, the other end of the spectrum, that a founder has to kind of sleep under their desk and work 90 hours a week. That picture is unhealthy, right? That picture to paint is unhealthy, because if people go into starting a business with that mindset, then they're not going to put themselves in a healthy position. So there is a kind of a line to be try to think, but I mean, I know I'm guilty of that a little bit, encroaching too much. My fiance says that there's 3 people in our relationship and one of them's the laptop, which isn't great. But at the same time, you have to accept going into starting a company that there are going to be sacrifices.
How do you navigate those situations, right? Because there are going to be founders who have significant others who are probably saying the same thing. You've mentioned the fact there that there are sacrifices. Like, what would your advice be to some people who might be experiencing the same thing? Because you do have a fiance and you are getting married, so you can't be doing too badly.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure I'm best placed to answer that, but I don't know. I think you have to draw a line somewhere, and I'm really not good at doing this, by the way. So I'm probably not the best place to give advice on this. I think, but you do have to try and find a balance, both for you, but also everything else that's going in your life. So whether it's a partner or whatever. For me, I think you have to kind of check. I have to check myself on what am I prioritizing over whatever it is. Going for a run or spending time with my fiance or seeing family or whatever it is. I have to sort of check myself on, okay, what is that challenge that's right in front of me, or that task that's right in front of me that I'm considering prioritizing over something else that I'm meant to be doing. And if I can kind of zoom out and realize that actually in the grand scheme of things, is everything going to fall over? No, then maybe I can make a decision there on what I prioritize.
I love that.
But there are going to be some, on the flip side, like, going back to the kind of fantasy of being a founder, there are going to be times you can guarantee where you have to drop everything because otherwise the company might fall over. Right? Or you have to tend to someone in the team for some issue or whatever. So it is a balance, but it's a really difficult balance to navigate. And the other thing I say, which I'm also bad at, is you have to listen to your partner.
I love it. This has been such a real and raw conversation. I think, like, one of the final questions I want to ask is, like, we have all of these people who are like founders, and they want to do this and they want to do that. Like, my question to you is, like, what does success look like for you, and where do you see a Hello Lamppost in the next 5 and 10 years?
They're kind of one and the same for me. I think success for Hello Lamppost for us is being ubiquitous. Much like you pull that thing out of your pocket and you're using it like a computer, it becomes second nature. Our vision, our mission is to make places better for people. And really our vision is that it exists everywhere, and everyone becomes accustomed to just chatting with places using our interface as the portal to get information when you're in a place, when you're in a location. That's kind of that's success for us is you can go to any country or city and our platform exists.
You want when they're like, Google it, is it going to be like, why don't you post it? Is that what it's going to be?
Yeah, maybe,
or why don't you hello
it?
Yeah, hello it. we want a phrase that is synonymous with your company.
Yeah. We want to lose our copyright like Hoover.
I love it.
Yes, that's success for us. I think we know the platform and the company can have a huge impact around the world, and we just want it to exist in as many places as possible. And obviously with everything that comes with that, if the company's successful, then we as a founding team and as a wider team are successful as well, and that comes with many other things, obviously. Otherwise, we'd be running an NGO, right?
I love it. To any founders, or just anybody who's listening to this conversation, what would your final piece of advice be?
Generally, I think put your blinkers on and as much as you can, follow what you want to do, what you love doing. It's actually it's really interesting. Like, we've got a niece and two nephews, and they're much younger. The eldest is 7, but I think about them kind of going through the kind of decision making of what to do when they grow up, and I really want to kind of instill in them, much like anyone, is just listen to what you enjoy doing day to day, and chances are there'll be a career in that.
100%.
One of my favorite quotes is from Warren Buffett, and caveat that it's very easy for him to say at this stage, but he said, if I would have enjoyed sweeping, being a janitor, or if I would have enjoyed legal work, I would have followed those careers. He was just lucky that he enjoyed allocating capital, right? And like I said, the caveat is that it's very fortunate to say that.
Yeah.
But it's very valid, right? I think society says that you should be going into certain things, whereas in reality, I think, we see it time and time again with kind of our generation going into a course, much like me, and then they end up not doing that course, right? It's much the same. So my advice would be, try as much as possible to not listen to the noise and put your blinkers on and follow what you enjoy doing, what you love doing, because chances are, if you don't in the short term, you'll probably end up doing that down the line at some point.
100%. And I think just to add to that point, I always used to think oh my God, what am I good at? I think there's a lot of people who get worried that if they have to think about what they enjoy or what they're good at, they're not actually going to be able to pinpoint one thing. And what I found works well is thinking what is it that I do that doesn't drain me? It gives me energy that other people struggle with. So for me, it's talking to people and socializing, right? And it's I've been at events with people where, you go to a party, people get back and they're knackered, or the next day they're wiped. I'm that was just a standard party for me.
Right, nice,
and it's when you have, multiple interactions where you see, oh my God, it's play for me, but it's really intense for someone else.
And that's listening to yourself.
Yeah.
That is exactly that. It's listening to yourself. Whereas, if you would have had those thoughts as young buyer, everyone probably would have said, yeah, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What's your job? And if you would have said, well, I don't know, whatever you want to do, I want to go into events, or I want to start a podcast or whatever, chances are they would have said, yeah, but it's not a proper career, right? And it's the same for me, actually, growing up. Maybe I want to start a business. Yeah, but in what?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know yet. And forget about that for the time being. So you're absolutely right. Listen to internal signals.
Yeah, I love it. T, this has been such a great conversation. You ready for the quickfire round?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Am I ready?
Would you rather have Hello Lamppost installations in every major city, or one iconic installation that becomes world famous?
Every city.
Unlimited funding with deadlines, or limited funding with flexibility?
Unlimited funding.
Money or happiness?
Both.
Happiness. That's the new phrase. Small elite team or large good team?
Large good team.
Oh. Focus on government clients or private businesses?
Both.
Work from home or work from the office?
Both. I need to change the scenery.
Develop in-house AI or integrate a third-party solution?
In-house.
Okay.
But also do the second one.
Both. Would you rather travel to the past or future?
Future.
Expand functionality or improve user friendliness?
User experience every day.
I was going to say, you can't say both again. You've used 3 strikes. And then, final one here. Dream dinner guest.
Oh, God, that's tough. Too many. How big's the table?
Table of 4, so 3 others.
Warren Buffett. Melinda Gates. 4 including me or excluding me?
No, including you.
Including me.
It's got Melinda, not Bill, as well. That's interesting.
Roger Federer.
Like it. T. This has been such a great conversation. We do have a closing tradition on the podcast.
Right.
With everything that you've been through and all the experiences that you've had, what advice would you give your younger self? And would you be doing the same thing?
I think I'd still be doing the same thing, yeah. Whether it's Hello Lamppost or not, I'm not sure. But I think advice for my younger self would be pretty much what I just said is listen to what you enjoy and put the blinkers on. Because it's kind of a mantra that I have that I have today, and I say to the team, both personally and professionally, like, put the blinkers on. If you think something's right, put the blinkers on and give it a go. Try not to concern yourself too much with what he or she's doing over here or over here, both in personal life and professionally. So, yeah, I think advice to my younger self would have just been like, put the blinkers on, ignore the noise, and listen to what you like.
I love it. T, where can people find you, the company, whatever socials you want to share?
Kind of difficult to spell, but my name's Tiernan Mines, so I'm on most.
I'm gonna put it in the link. Don't worry. Don't spell it.
It's the bane of my professional life. But yeah, you can find me on most channels. And then Hello Lamppost websites is hlp.city. And then it's on predominantly like LinkedIn and other channels. But yeah, we're mostly active on LinkedIn. Also,
just look out for it as well. Now we've if you got to this point in the podcast, bloody look out for it in every goddamn building. Okay, scan the thing, engage. All right,
coming to your public place near you.
Exactly, and shame on you if you don't. But no, guys, as always, thank you for getting to this part in the podcast. You know what to do. If you've enjoyed the conversation, make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment. Let us know who you want to hear from next. Like, this has been. I might even just go and start my own business, because I feel like I want to chew some glass and stare into the abyss. But for now, this has been another episode of What My Best Friend Does. Go out there, take some immediate action, and find the career of your dreams. Over and out.